Start the recording. So wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for all for joining. We have enough of a quorum here, so we're going to get started in the interest of time. And I just wanted to welcome everyone. Happy New Year. I haven't had the chance to meet any of you this year yet, so thanks for joining. This is our third internship workshop. We've done an introductory one and one on develop your skills. And this is the most fun, I think, because you get to really test out any of the stuff that you're currently engaging in. So Amy is all geared to help you do that. This session is really on practicing. So it's really the focus is making it as interactive as possible. So dig out your questions, keep asking away. The focus and the interest here, really the best what you can get out of it is the more questions you ask. Again, welcome, Amy. Thank you so much for always making time to spend with us. Amy, as you may have heard on previous sessions, has a very rich background and experience in helping managers and hiring managers and entry-level individuals, all from the C-suite to the entry level, to get to coach them from a job perspective. So she is working across many fields and from finance, digital marketing, software, and it's wonderful to have Amy part of this. Thank you, Amy, and welcome. The session is being recorded. Just housekeeping rules. Just make this as interactive as possible and ask your questions as much as you can. So with that, Amy, I will hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. I'm sorry, I keep going in and out of, let's see, I want to turn subtitles off, and I keep going in and out of mode. I'm trying to not have a full screen because I have some other worksheets up that I want to show you guys, but I'm going to leave it here for now. Thank you so much for joining us. And I want to congratulate Jeremy, who's with us on securing an internship in the last week. He's going to be, you want to tell people what you're doing, Jeremy? I'll embarrass you.
Hi, I got an internship as a logistics intern with the PMS Challenge. So I'll be working on kind of things leading up to the weekend where that Beckathon actually takes place, and work alongside their fundraising team as well.
Great, which is awesome news. And I wanted to, I did get a little chance to talk to Natalie and Dee Dee about what their specific objectives are. So I'm also going to embarrass Adaho and ask you, you're free to either put something in the chat, or I'd love it if you don't mind talking to me about what your objectives are for the day, and if there's any thing specific that I may address for you with regards to the upcoming internship season, interviewing or networking or anything at all. No, too scary. Okay, well, feel free to jump in, Adaho, at any point. We might have caught you going to get some water or something. Okay, so today's hopefully going to be is going to be more successful the more interactive we go. And I'm just going to quickly review some of the things we've already done, and then I'm going to address some of your questions and hopefully get to even more. There's a case study we can do if people would like towards the end, but really I'd like to address the issues that you're having and things that you're facing and help you as specifically as possible. So let's talk about your personal goals. We're going to just review elevator pitch, networking, most specifically why you shouldn't be afraid of it, and then a little bit of interviews. And I'm going to talk to Jeremy more specifically about that because we work together pretty closely, and I want to get both his feedback, and also I think it's more important probably more impactful if he says some of the stuff that I think is important, rather than me saying it. Elevator pitch, just as a reminder, you need to make it easy for people to help you. They really do. And this is the first step. So part of what you want to do is make it, give people an idea of enough. Oh, Adaho's back in. Okay, I cold called you earlier. Adaho, do you mind quickly telling us or putting in the chat exactly what you hope to get out of today's meeting so I can address it for you? And actually, why don't you put it in the chat, because I'm going to keep going through our materials as quickly as possible so we can get to the issues that people would like to discuss specifically. And I'm just getting back to what elevator pitches are and why they're good to have. It's really the best tool for presenting yourself at the right level of detail very quickly. And I have some examples of what an elevator pitch is here. Here's what basically the outline is. Here's what I'm looking for. Here's why I know I'll be good at it. And can you help me? And as an example, we'll walk through number 2 here. While I hope to learn, I also do a basic lab skill. Oh, sorry, these are going across. Number 1, I'm hoping to get some experience working in a lab this summer, either within a company or a university. I hope to learn, but I do also have basic lab skills working with data and equipment, following procedures based on coursework I've done. Do you know of any labs that are hiring interns? So that's an example of an elevator pitch. It's not saying, well, I want to do anything research related. It's saying I have some value to offer, I have some skills to offer, but I really want to learn and I want to work in a lab. So given that, we can practice, we can come back to it. I want to get through everything first to know specifically what you'd like to do. Networking. Okay. Networking is not just randomly talking to people. It does have a goal. What you want to do is get your resume forwarded internally by somebody who works at the company, because that will get you to the top of the pile. It's also a good idea to get a list of learn about relevant positions before they're posted. And it could also help you identify other people who can help you. So talking to people, the trick is, and I was talking earlier about this, is that everybody likes talking about themselves. So we were talking about earlier, there are a couple of places people get stuck. One is trying to find people to network with. The other is what to say to them. So I have a little worksheet on how to structure a networking call. And what's my references one for Dee Dee? This is a networking call worksheet that I'm going to pull up specifically once I have my new share available. Okay, so this is available on my website. I'm also happy to send it to anybody, and I can put it in the chat. It breaks the flow a little bit, but this is an example. This is how you can structure a call, and this is if you're a little shy or you just want a little extra help. It's a little structure. So you want to start, let's say you've asked somebody for a call for 15 or 20 minutes of their time. And I have some examples of templates for that too. You just want to be asked quickly, asking for their help. You want to start out by showing appreciation for the time you've been given. So just start out by saying, thank you so much, Ms. Find-Reeves, for talking with me today. I'm really appreciative, and I promise not to keep you for long than however long I've agreed to, 20 minutes. Then you want to explain why you've asked for this person's time. So you've called them, you're going to take the lead on the conversation. So up front, you want to tell them what your long-term objective is. So you're interested in a career, let's say I'm still working in management consulting. You're interested in a career in management consulting. You reached out to me because maybe I also went to Brandeis University, and you're interested to know maybe if there are any positions available at McKinsey where I work, how I got started at, in management consulting when I left Brandeis, or maybe I live in LA, and what's it like working in consulting in LA, and how would you get started? Or here's an example. I'm very interested in your industry. I'm really hoping to get a job in it. I was hoping you could give me a good understanding of how I can become a more attractive candidate for an entry-level role. The next one, tell your story, but be quick. So you want to start, and you don't want to start with, I went to high school in New Jersey. I started out playing basketball in college, but then I stopped. I decided to be a history major. You want to start with, I'm currently a junior at Brandeis University. I'm majoring in marketing. I've done some internships at local places, but what I've really liked doing was focusing on social media. So I'm really interested in social media. Then you connect with a person by asking about them. Let them talk about themselves by asking questions. How did you get started? What advice would you give me? What's the best advice you ever got? What is it you actually do in your current role? And that's not a dumb question, because very few people actually know what other people do in their jobs who aren't in the industry. So just some good questions like that to get some people talking. Keep an eye on the time. It's a good idea to keep your phone or your watch, however you keep time, in front of you, so that when you hit the 5-minute mark and it's almost up, you can say, I want to be respectful of your time. Can you talk a little longer, or shall we wrap up? And wrapping up is really important, because you want to define the next steps. You want to close with another thank you. You want to know if if you can be in touch with them if anything comes up at their company. So let's say I work for Digitas Marketing, and you know that they sometimes post jobs for college interns. You want to say, if I see an internship come up at Digitas, can I forward you my resume and ask you to pass it internally? That's the whole thing. I mean, you definitely want to learn, you definitely want to take notes about it. It'll definitely help you. But when the push comes to shove, you want to know if you can get that resume forwarded. The other one is, do you know of anybody else I can talk to? Because that expands your network. After you finish, quickly write an email, thank you. Doesn't have to be long, they're not going to read it. You just need to say thank you, maybe the most important thing you learned, maybe something personal like, I hope the Red Sox win, if you talked about the Red Sox, and just say, I'll be in touch, thank you very much. Maybe 3 lines total, but just something about what you learned that's not totally generic, or something personal that you discussed. And then you also want to keep a log of it. You want to make sure that you keep a spreadsheet or a notebook or something about who you talked to and when, and maybe something personal about what you learned about them, or how they offered to help, and who else they offered to let you talk to. So is that helpful? Natalie, does that address many of your questions? And does that help get you over the hump of being nervous about it? Okay, all right, great. So anybody else have any specific questions about networking that was helpful? Ahato, Jeremy, Dee Dee, is that good? No questions? Okay. All right, I'm gonna go
I
on.
had a quick question, clarifying, because someone else asked me this, and I, sometimes it's touch and go, right? So if you've connected with people and, either on the phone or in person, is it okay to connect with them right after on LinkedIn?
I would say absolutely. That's when it's fresh in their mind. I would never, ever, ever do the generic LinkedIn. I would say, hi, we met yesterday via whoever the person was, whatever the scenario was. I look forward to staying in touch.
Great.
But yeah,
Yes.
I wouldn't do it too soon, because not everyone looks at LinkedIn every day. I know that I don't. So
yeah, and it's preferable to do it after the conversation, right, as opposed to before. Because people have done that to me. It's like, I know we're going to meet in a week, and they connect on LinkedIn. So is there a right or wrong, or doesn't matter?
I would wait until after, probably.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily wrong to do it before, but I would wait until after.
Yeah, it's probably more meaningful after.
Yeah, exactly. You feel like you know the person better.
Yeah.
And also, if you're somebody that seems really annoying and is just asking about themselves, if you get on a call, if you're the kind of person, if networking to you is another important thing about networking is, if you're the person who it just picks up the phone all the time when you want something, people aren't going to pick up the phone. So tending your network is kind of like gardening. So let's say you're talking to me, and you know that my daughter is going to Northwestern. and you happen to note in your Facebook page or you see online an article that Northwestern's having a great football season, maybe you drop me an email about that. That's what great networkers do. They
Yep.
tend their network like they tend to guard it, and they make sure people know that they're thinking about them.
Yep.
And that's not overly aggressive. That's kind. That's
Yeah.
how, if you treat your friends that way, that's how you want to treat your network. Not
Yeah.
overly intrusive, but maybe
Yeah.
once a year, twice a year.
Yeah. I had one quick other question that came up in my conversations and networking, and someone said during the conversation we talked about XYZ. The person offered to send me some contact information about others, so kind of right to what you were saying, like here are a couple more people you want to talk to. And then when they followed up and said, can you send me those? And we talked to you, thank you, they never heard back. So the question is on follow-up, is how much is appropriate and how much is too much? And I don't know, that's probably a judgment call, but would love your
Again,
thoughts.
yeah, again, I would say make it easy for people to help you. I would say you mentioned that you would introduce me to Hepsi Fonseca. I had noted that Hepsi works as a vice president at Ann Taylor Merchandising, which is something I'm very interested in. They do have internships. Is this the correct Hepsi Fonseca? And would it be okay if I reached out to her using your name, letting her know that I would be interested in asking her to forward my resume internally for internships? So let them know why you're reaching out and let them know what you're going to say when you reach out. And you'll have a much better chance of getting a yes response, because otherwise, if you're not really sure what the person's going to do with the name or the connection, if you're afraid they might say, well, so-and-so recommended me for this position, then they're going to be like, what? If you say, may I use your name for this introduction for this reason, then you have a much better chance. It's still possible they're going to say no, but you have a much better chance.
And what I like about that is you pretty much take the onus of taking the action and take it off their plate. So I think that's a really good suggestion.
Exactly. Making it, everybody wants to help you, make it easy for them.
Easy. No. Perfect.
Okay, I already talked about this, keeping a record. I'm going to go on from networking to interviewing. And now I'm going to talk to Jeremy a little bit about some of the things that he and I have talked about this week. Proving that you understand what the job is and what will be required of you, proving that you have the skills to do it with examples, and proving that you want the job. And let me just ask you kind of open-ended, Jeremy, what do you think made you successful in your interview process with PanMass?
I think I really honed in on that point that you told me a bunch about, the job goes to the person who wants it most, because I kind of thought about it similar to college. There's a ton of people who are qualified when you're writing your college application, but it's kind of the essay that really is the core of it. So I was thinking the interview is kind of the core. They get to read everything and they could figure out if you're qualified that way, but what you say, the words that you choose ultimately are gonna be what is compared to everyone else in that process.
Anybody else have questions for Jeremy?
What kind of interview did you do? Was it in person, Zoom, phone call?
It was on Zoom. So I made sure to dress well for that. One of something one of my interviewers said at the end was oh, did you wear that suit for us, or did you have something else going on? And he said I should have dressed up better like him. So I just thought that was funny. They obviously respected the fact that I dressed up with a suit on for the interview.
That's great. What do you think was the most important preparation that you did?
I took I took a bunch of notes like on like a note sheet and kind of like read through them, but not in a way where like I would recite basically, but just like have like a playbook kind of in my head. So I made sure to think of like for everything that's like on my resume, like how I would describe that, like because you have a resource like about kind of like mapping experiences. I forget the name of that document, but like
Oh, yeah, I can pull that up actually. Yeah, that's a really helpful one. Go ahead, keep talking. I'll pull
yeah,
it up for people and walk through it.
but like whenever I wanted to talk about like a past experience I had, I didn't want it to just be, oh, I worked for like this organization and we did this and like my role consisted of this, but more so like what was the purpose of that, like how did I like what was my reflection of that, what did I learn from that position, what can I bring to the table from that, like how did that further prepare me for this specific role that I'm applying for. Yeah, so this like was pretty helpful. And I didn't take like really like rigorous like notes for this because like I just wouldn't retain anything that way. I just like kind of like put some bullet points, narrated it in my head, thought of a natural way to say things. Because if I had a specific way of saying things, like it's not going to always come up in that like specific way in conversation. So just keeping it loose in general.
Yeah, so as follow-up to one of the things Jeremy said, one of the things I like to counsel people on is to not worry so much about what you're going to be asked, but to think about what you're going to say and take some of the strongest points in your resume and develop stories about them. And so I think for Jeremy, one of the things that was strongest for him, and one of the reasons why we suspected that he maybe even got a call from PanMass was he had done, originally we thought he would be applying for a fundraising internship. And he had done some fundraising for Boston Youth Wrestling, right? In terms of the administrative work of calling donors and collecting the checks and depositing them, right? And putting them in a database, Jeremy, if I'm remembering correctly. And there was two ways to tell that story. He could have said, well, I deposited checks for Boston Youth Wrestling, and that was a good experience. And I learned about, how finances work and why it's important to keep track of donors. But really, he was kind of starting in the middle. And most people, whether they're in college or whether they're chairman of the board of a large company, tend to start in the middle when they tell stories. So when you think about crafting your experience into how you're going to tell a story, just as Jeremy said, it can answer a lot of different questions and it can be much more impactful. So I'm going to stop using Jeremy as an example, but I'm going, let me give you this one. So, and Jeremy's heard it before, so I apologize. But so if I said to you, last summer, I went to Ghana and I worked with mothers to help them grow gardens to feed their children because some of the people in the really rural communities use vegetables to feed their cattle and not their children. And they don't acknowledge the nutritional value of feeding their children. And I went with a UNICEF team. So that's pretty cool, right? But what if I said, so I signed on for an internship with UNICEF where I got to travel to Ghana. I was the third shift of a team of 3, where for years UNICEF had been trying to get this very rural, these very rural people in Ghana who had a very high infant mortality rate to grow vegetables to feed themselves and their children instead of the cattle. And for years, they had been sending a team, having success with the garden and then leaving, and the garden would convert back to cattle because they couldn't really make change last. So they decided to send a team for year round to make sure that they stayed long enough for mothers to see the benefits. So they stayed for a full year, and I was the last one on the part of the last team, the the third shift of the team. So I really got to see the benefits of people recognizing the value of feeding their children vegetables and seeing the change in health and the drop in the infant mortality rate. And it was really exciting. I worked with 4 families in a community of 20. So I was with 5 other people. I worked with the babies. I helped the mothers feed them. I helped tend the garden. And I really got to see their faces and be with the families when they noticed the change in their children. And it was really valuable. And I also learned a lot of knowledge about how difficult it is for people to change, and a lot about different cultures. And I learned a lot from their cultures too. And it was really valuable experience. Very different, right? So if you expand something and really tell the whole story, it can make for a much better interview story. So this worksheet is on my website. And I'm always happy to tell it to you as well. So really thinking about what's on your resume that you can tell a story like this, what your role was. And anytime you can add numbers, it makes for a big difference too. 'Cause it doesn't have to be an exact number, but the difference between, for example, if you're doing fundraising, the difference between working with 5 donors or 50 or 500 makes a difference, just order of magnitude. So that's the presenting your experience worksheet. And the other thing, Jeremy, I wanted to ask you, one of the things I always say is the questions you ask are as important as the questions you answer. Do you think that played out truthfully? Is that, did you get a chance to ask a lot of the questions? And do you think that made an impact?
Yeah, I think it for sure made an impact. Like, so the second interview I had was with like the founder of PMC. And my question at the end was, like, I wanted to show that I was interested in like kind of him like being an entrepreneur for this organization, and that like I have that interest, and also that I'm looking to learn how to grow within this job. So I made sure to ask, like, as an entrepreneur, what was like, and having to take that, like all those responsibilities of starting this organization, like what is some advice like you give to your interns about I guess from that experience about how they should lead during this program? And he told me like a lot about like engagement and like everything that you do, and like feeling passionate about this like role and stuff. But I think that he appreciated that question.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, one thing you don't want to do in an interview is when people say, do you have any questions? Just say, nope, because that shows interest in a job when you have questions. So, and it's perfectly okay to write down a list of questions beforehand and have it with you. And if you're on Zoom, say, oh, and I have a list of questions, or oh, my questions are right here. You never want to run out of questions to ask.
I was just going to jump in, Jeremy. What I love about that question of yours, it's not only, like AB said, asking a question, but also that it shows interest in the individual and the organization at a whole different level. So it's just making that relationship connection. I think that is always, people will always want to share kind of, their advice or experience, and sharing that, especially with the younger generations. I think you touched an emotional chord, a relationship chord with that question. So it's good for you.
So some key preparation steps for interviewing: learn what the organization does, and learn how your job will contribute to the organization. Prepare a strong opening statement to what you know will be the first question. So the first question is going to be some version of, tell me about yourself. Walk me through your resume. Why do you want this job? And it's a good idea to say, so in Jeremy's case, or Natalie, tell me what kind of jobs you're going to be interviewing for.
I'm not really sure. Like, for example, one of them is the CST cell signaling internship. So that one.
What's CST?
It's the cell signaling internship.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a part of the spreadsheet through the foundation.
Okay, I don't know what that is, but I'm gonna say here, is that a bio thing?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to say that you're going to a research lab and say, I'm a biology major. I'm really excited to do research work in a lab this summer because I've been working with self-signaling a little bit, and I think it's really fascinating, and I've learned some skills, and I know the work. I've taken a look online at the kinds of projects that you're doing, and the work is very exciting to me, and I believe I have the skills to help you do this project well. And I'd really like to join your team for the summer. So that's how you can start out. And then if they want to ask you about anything specific on your resume, you can do so. Prepare answers to common questions that you might get asked, like, tell us about a time tell us what kind of work you like to do, tell us about a time you really succeeded in something, or tell us about a time you overcame a difficulty, and then prepare a list of questions to ask your interviewer. Now, I did a case study for you guys. If you were worried about doing interview, I don't think we necessarily need to do that. I do want to address Dee Dee's questions, and guess what? I have a worksheet for references, and this is, let me get up my references worksheet. The deal with references, and this is this is probably for people who have more of a background than you guys do, so it's a little it's a little overkill, but let me see, sorry. Let me get my references worksheet. Thought I had it pulled up. Okay. Okay, so when you ask for a reference, the thing you want to do, again, as there's a general theme here, is to make it easy for people. First thing about references, the best thing you can take away from an internship is a reference. So you want to make sure that you pick somebody that you know, that you want to know ahead of time, or halfway through the summer, maybe pick someone that you know you want to ask for a reference. So you want to ask in person before you leave the internship. This isn't helping you now, Dee Dee, but we're going to get to that. And that you'll follow up, and they'll usually say yes. And then you want to make sure that it's in person. So here's an example of what you can send an email after that. If you have not yet asked and you've already been there, I would call them personally. I would not send an email. I would call and say, I have an upcoming opportunity and I really enjoyed the work I did with you. May I use you as a reference? And they'll probably either email you or text you back and say, can I, I'd be happy to act as you as a reference. I would then follow up with an email that says what you did for them that you are proud of, or in general, an outline of what you did for them, because they have probably had more than one intern, more than one people working for them, and you want to send a summary of your work. So in greater terms, and this may be overkill, the scope of the work, or the objective of the work, or the result of the work, number of people involved, and then repeat it for each project. So if, for example, and I know Jeremy's resume the best, he was doing work for Boston Youth Wrestling, he would say, I led 3 classes a week of 14, I assisted in 3 classes a week of 14 students each. I worked in the office collecting checks and inputting them into a database. I interacted with staff and participated in trainings, whatever it was that he did as a reminder. And then he can also say, in this role, I will be asked to take on responsibilities, pay attention to detail, and be successful in a very high, fast-paced environment. So if possible, can you address those things when you speak to Billy? So you both explain what it is that you've done, and you say what it is you're hoping they will address. And, you know, the underneath that says, you know, please say that I'm good at these things. But that's the best way to ask for a reference. Now, if you can just put all that into a text because you worked for them for 6 weeks, that's great too. But that's really what you want to do, is say, review what it is that you did for the person and what it is you'd like them to address. And again, it's under the whole umbrella of people really want to help you. You just need to make it easy for them. And that way too, you can feel comfortable reaching out to somebody that maybe you haven't worked for in over a year or so. Now, Dee Dee asked another question, which is, during the course of the interview, can you ask about how much you are going to make? And I'm sorry to say the answer is no. You really don't, so let's say if we're talking about jobs, career jobs, the answer is no. When you are going through the interview process, all you want to do is be focused on how much value you want to add to the company once you get this job. Your questions want to be, what's the best characteristic somebody can have in this job? Can you describe a person who's been really successful in this job? What would you say makes someone really successful in this job? What characteristic do you need to have to really add a lot of value in this job? You know, that's what you want to portray. Those are the things you want to ask about. Once you have the offer, then you want to talk about what you're getting back, how quickly you may be promoted, what your review cycle is, what your, what you can do to negotiate. In an internship, where you are probably going to need to survive for the summer, that I'm not going to say that's as hard and fast a rule. What I will say is, you don't want to waste anyone's time applying for something that, for example, if there is no fee and you need to be paid to survive, you want to know upfront. So if it is not in the job description, if you cannot find it anywhere, you might want to ask. I think that's usually pretty upfront in an internship. Do you want to tell me a little bit about the specific case that you're asking about?
Sure. So I'm currently applying to about 5 different internships for the summer. They're all research related, and I'm trying to focus more on the environmental side.
Oh, right.
So I'm trying to do more ocean related,
Oh,
marine
right.
sciences
Yeah, we've talked before.
internships.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's one specifically at, Woods Hole. It's called the Partnership Education Program. And for some reason, I'm not finding their offers, basically. So, like, if it's going to be a stipend or more of an hourly rate, is transportation provided, food, housing, that sort of stuff. So I was just, I was wondering if
you're absolutely allowed to ask that. Is there on the website a former interns listed?
I know for some of the other ones there are. I'm not sure about Woods Hole, but I can look into that.
Yeah, you could ask them. It's also purely okay to maybe email the program director and say, I'm extremely interested in your internship, and I believe I have a lot to offer. Don't forget that. I believe I can add a lot of value to the internship. I will help. Unfortunately, I am unable to apply to an internship that does not offer the ability for me to travel there, or some kind of stipend to support me for the summer.
And
so
that's the type of email I would send before my application.
Yes.
Or
Yeah, I would.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ahado, I'd love to hear from you if you have any specific questions or issues, if there are anything you're applying to that you'd like to know more about.
Currently, I was just looking at like some of the internships on the spreadsheet, but I'm not really sure. I don't have like any specific interview questions right now because, yeah, I'm just listening and learning to about everyone else's experiences.
Okay. Okay. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if there was something you're struggling with about getting started or anything you're nervous about, please do feel free to reach out too. So, okay. We're at 3:45. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about like asking for a reference like twice, like in the following year, like would you just send like a similar email and say, oh, I've had you as a reference before, um to remind you, blah blah blah, like things like
Oh, is
that.
this because they haven't called for one? They haven't gotten back to you, or
Oh no,
for a second job?
I'm just wondering, like in the future, what I should do if I decide to use like one of the references I used, like again.
I would say yes. I would say, yeah, I would say, kind of be nice about it and say, I hope you don't mind spending a few minutes again on the phone, because really their reference doesn't take more than 10 minutes or so. I would be, and it's also nice to thank someone for a reference. So you might want to, I don't know, bring them a Dartmouth notebook or something, or something, bake them brownies or something, I don't know. Say, I really appreciated the reference. Oh, and also absolutely always circle back and let your references know that you got the job. That will go a long way towards, and also anybody that helps. So another thing is, if you're doing some networking, that's the other thing about feeding your network, is always let people know who've helped you, what the result was and where you land. So if you do, so if you, I said, I would say, you also can ask. So if you ask somebody that got you a role, helped you get Pan Mass by giving you a reference, say, thank you so much. I'm so happy to let you know I got the job. And by the way, I'm probably going to be asking for another on-campus role in the fall. Do you mind? Would you mind if I asked you again sometime in the future, sometime in a few months, for another reference? That's probably the best way to do it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else have anything specific? Do you want me to go over this case study and take a look at how to analyze a job description? Is that helpful, or do you want to address anything else about what we've talked about so far? Okay, let me go over this case study quickly, because I do think it can help you guys as an example. So let me pull up the last slide of this, and it's just an example of looking at when I talk about prepping for a resume. I'll come back to the last question. This is an internship at Wayfair. Do you guys know what Wayfair is? Have you ever shopped there or seen the website? Okay, it's a pretty big company. It's in Boston. They're always hiring. Okay, I have to put this in my browser and put us on a different screen. Okay, business analyst for this summer. And I will share it. It's an actual live internship, if that helps. Okay, so Wayfair, job descriptions have 3 parts. The first one tells you what the company does. The second one tells you about what you would do in the job. And the third one tells you what they're looking for in a candidate, to what they do in the job. So Wayfair, because they probably assume you know who they are because they're so massive, goes right into what the job is. So they're looking for somebody who's analytical, entrepreneurial, action-oriented for a business analyst opportunity in summer 2022. Play a critical role in the growth strategy and competitive positioning by leveraging data-driven analyses and innovative approaches to drive results for internal and external business partners. Tells you exactly what you'd be doing, right? No. Okay. So successful analysts are quantitative, curious, and thrive in fast-paced collaborative environments. Ideal opportunities for candidates interested in technology and e-commerce, developing hands-on analytical and technical skills and working with core business functions to drive real impact and results. Okay, so what do you think Wayfair's core business functions are? Anybody want to give me the summary of what Wayfair's core business functions are? Anybody use the site? Oh, somebody put a chat in. Marketing, okay. They do a lot. That is absolutely a core function. So the site is, it's kind of a weird company. So that they sell home goods of all sorts. It's kind of an Amazon of all things for your house, right? Lamps, tables, couches, coffee mugs to couches, right? They are actually more of a technical company. So they're really, really good. They have all of their offices in Boston are, they don't keep any coffee cups or couches. They have technology that connects them to the people in North Carolina who make the couches and to the people in the Midwest who make the coffee cups and everything in between. What they offer is a software so that if you put in an order for coffee cups, their software connects you to the coffee cup people. The coffee cup people can get your address, your billing information, and send it directly to you so that they never have to take control of the coffee cup. So they're really a lot about software, but obviously they're a lot about marketing because they have to get you to come to the site, know that they have coffee cups, and know that you want to go there for everything from your coffee cup to your couch. So it's absolutely a lot about marketing. It's a lot about technology, and it's a lot about trying to get you to buy more of things there, spend more money there. It's called share of wallet and a share of mindset. But that's me being a little bit business geeky. But the profit marketplace strategy, competitive intelligence, and business trends is a lot about trying to get you to stop buying things in real stores and and their competitors would be like a Crate and Barrel or a Target or anywhere else you could buy those things, as well as a store like Amazon where you buy those things online. So those are, when they say competitive intelligence, they want to look at data and says, gosh, Jeremy bought his a table there for his dorm room and a lamp. And he also bought a coffee mug, but what if he went to Crate and Barrel and bought a knife for his dorm room and a mini fridge? We want to sell him that. So it's a kind of, they can have that kind of big data and say, well, maybe as a result of that, we should send Jeremy a coupon to buy something for 10% off at Wayfair. And that's the kind of thing that data analytics can tell you. And that's the kind of thing that you would look at if you were in this internship. So let's take another look. This marketing strategy and analytics drives growth for Wayfair on every major advertising platform. So can you guys give me examples of advertising platforms? I think we lost Dee Dee, but this is probably
Social media.
Absolutely. TV, billboards, social media.
Newspaper.
Yep. Tons of it. So we aren't your standard marketers. We own the strategy, profit and loss, and roadmaps for cutting edge and in-house built marketing and ad tech products. So we utilize data to acquire high potential customers. So somebody who's going to buy a lot of stuff, i.e. a homeowner probably, and engage them to come back again and again for more of their stuff. Drive profitable top line revenue by investing marketing dollars where they will provide the greatest return. So just like an investor wants the greatest return on their savings, if you put it, if you invest $1, You don't want you could get $1.05 back at the end of the year, or you could get $1.25 back at the end of the year. You want to go for the greatest return on your dollar. In an ad campaign, you want the greatest return on your revenue, on your marketing dollar. So you can put it into a TV campaign and maybe get 5 new buyers. You can put it into a TikTok and get 18 new buyers. But you have to do a lot of analytical work to figure that out. And that's what this team does. So this is juniors or seniors who are majoring in economics or business or math. Oh, and here's the about Wayfair part. They changed it around. So world's largest destination for home. There's work in their warehouses. There's work in their offices. They're reinventing the way people shop for their home. So that's how you know what this job, what the company's about, and what the job's about. So let's go back to the questions about this internship if you were going to apply to it. And I'm going to go back to our little screen. Is that you would want to be able to know, what does Wayfair do? What would you do in the role? Who would you interact with in this role? And how would you help the company make money? Then how would you answer, why are you interested in this position? Or tell me about yourself, or walk me through your resume. How would you craft sort of an initial why I want to work here question? And then what other questions do you think you would be asked? And what other questions would you want to ask the interviewers? So for example, if you were going, Natalie, to look for this biology, you want to know exactly what this lab does, and you want to know exactly what you're going to be doing there. So you can talk about why you want the job, think about what questions you might be asked, and think about what questions you want to ask. Same Dee with Woods Hole, you want to learn much more about maybe how they get their funding and what specific project you would be on and what the goal of that project would be, how you could contribute to it, and think about good answers for why that is what you absolutely want to do this summer. And as Jeremy said, really important that they know you want the job, you really want the job, because the job always goes to the person who wants it the most, because that's the person who's going to work the hardest to do a good job. So I did it. Unfortunately, I didn't realize this. I picked out a job that I think would be really cool. And I don't know if it resonated with any of you guys, but hopefully that's helpful to get. They don't always tell you. I thought it would resonate because you have because you might have an idea of what Wayfair does. But it's hard to really know, especially from company descriptions, what it is that they do. You need to go to the site, you need to figure it out. It takes some time to really understand what it is that they're doing, and then figure out how the job would contribute to it. So you don't have to do it before you get the interview. You can kind of gloss it over, but you want to put it in a cover letter, as we discussed last time. But once you get an interview, if you want that job, you got to really kind of work to figure it out. Okay, any last questions I can answer before we end the session? All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining me and bringing your questions. I really appreciate it. And I'll offer to, if you can't find these worksheets on my website, please let me know and I'm happy to send them to you.
Great. So just before we wrap, I just want to say thanks again, Amy, for joining us. Always helpful, hopefully very informative to our group. I love the fact that we had a good interactive session. So thank you, Jeremy, Dee Dee, Natalie, for pitching in here. One of the things I wanted to point out, this is a recorded session. It will be posted on the Anaya Foundation internship resource site. We have posted the link in the chat as well. I think Amy has it at the end of the presentation. We've been adding a ton of new opportunities as they come up on our radar. So definitely check out the link that is also at the end of the presentation. If you don't have it, just email it to us at workshops@anaya.com, anayafoundation.com, and we'll send it to you. I wanted to quickly call out a session on February 10th. Eversource is is holding an information session on all the different internship opportunities that are going to be open to for the summer. So watch out for that email. It will come later this week. And also, once again, the Anaya Foundation Internship Resource Site has all the past workshop recordings. So if you missed any of those and you want to play catch up, you just need to go to this one place. And then before you head out, because we always love to hear from you and hear what any feedback you have on this session, what you'd like to see in other follow-up sessions, that would be extremely helpful. We have a form. Again, it's right here on the last slide here. And we have one more session, I think, scheduled for the April timeframe, I believe, when we are going to talk about more about interviewing and making successful. How do you embark on a successful internship? So all the things you need to do as you prepare to actually start your internship, and obviously timing wise, you wanted to do that closer to the date you're going to start your internship. But again, we're here. We'd love to help. The workshop at anayafoundation.org or internships at anayafoundation.org are two emails that you can use. I know Amy has kindly offered her personal email as well if you have specific follow-up questions for her. So do take some time to write us your thoughts and capture them in the feedback survey as well. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of the weekend and take care.
Stay warm, everybody.
Stay warm. That's right.
Thank you.